Peace and blessings.
On the morning of August 3rd, 1920, 46-year-old Jacob Mills shined his boots, polished his sword, and headed to Harlem to take part in one of the biggest parades in New York's history.
As a young boy, to see my father in the parade was one of the greatest things in the world. I would be right there to see him put on his tunic, and I loved to see that sword that he carried. It really made me feel very proud of him.
Mills was one of 100,000 black people marching under the red, black, and green flag of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. The world had never seen anything like it. It was all the work of one man, Marcus Garvey.
Every window that you looked at, people's heads were out to see the Marcus Garvey parade. Most of them wanted to see Marcus Garvey, and he was very well decorated, his hats and the feathers, but he drove always in his automobile, sitting back.
At the age of 34, Garvey claimed millions of followers worldwide. His controversial goal, to create an independent black nation, made him one of the most powerful people in America and one of the most hated. The federal government targeted him as a threat to national security.
Okay, that's what I wanted you to hear. The federal government labeled him a threat to national security because his objective was for the melanated people of this planet to have their own nation. So now, for someone to need a nation, it means that maybe they do not have a nation. Or maybe they want two nations. Or maybe they have two nations and they want three nations. The best way to find out is to ask the people. So if you were to ask the people of, let's say, the melanated status quo here in America, you say, hey, listen, what do you think about having your own nation? You were going to have what you call mixed concerns about that, because you're going to have people that's in positions where they feel one way. You're going to have people in other positions where they feel another way. So now if you want to ask a real sound-minded person that, you would ask someone that is not doing well. Because see, this is why. Most of the time in circumstances where something is working good for one person, the person that is working good for might not want it to change. Like for instance, Jay-Z has done very well as far financially as possible. We all know that. So there would be really no need for him to have a supreme objective to change things. He saw how things were, and he found a way to align his energy with what was already in effect and get online with what was practical that could make him become wealthy. Ain't nothing wrong with that. A lot of people do that. All right? Now here's the deal. The reason I said all that is because Marcus Garvey wanted to build a nation of people out of the ruins of a nation of people. Now, the average person that wants to do something like that is either someone who wants to take advantage of people or the masses, or someone who has a real sense of empathy for the masses that they can see being victimized by the person I just described and by a system that I just described. So that's probably what the case was with Marcus Garvey, because we all know that anybody who really wants to use the masses will try to get on the team with the people that's already doing that. Anytime you're in opposition to that, meaning the government labels you a national threat or public enemy number one, government won't give you no title like that unless you are seriously on their shit list. You know, they killed Martin Luther King with him with him not ever being labeled a public threat or enemy, anything like that. You know, it's real simple. So my point being that the nationalization of us melanated people is what Marcus Garvey was trying to restore. He was not just merely trying to turn the melanated people into a national group. He, in honesty, was trying to restore these people to a group function that he knows in his heart and all throughout his genetics that these people desperately need to return to. Let's listen and see if there's proof of that.
Rival black leaders denounced him as a lunatic and a traitor to the race. But Garvey may have been his own worst enemy.
He wasn't one to take advice from others kindly. He made his own decisions, and he would rise or fall by the decisions that he made, because he was a supreme egotist.
Volatile and secretive, yet charismatic and visionary, Marcus Garvey changed forever the way black Americans looked at themselves and the world.
He started something that became bigger than Garvey himself. He, more than any other figure in the 20th century, symbolizes the turning of the perception of black people into something positive.
Okay, look for me in the whirlwind. Do you see this ship that's right here? I want you guys to understand that's a slaver. That's what that is, I guarantee you. Probably had slaves all in the bottom of that ship coming to America as stolen merchandise, stolen human, kidnapped people. All this America continuance of this type of mistreatment of the earth recipients of all races in this country, that ordeal that us melanated people went through is just a drop in the bucket. Everybody done been there. It done happened to everyone here, including the white people, the Chinese, the natives that was here, the black people that was here also, that people try to push under the rug and make it not known that the Europeans came here and eradicated a family of people that was descendants of the African family who had came here, one customary, different, synonymous, symbiotic. All these things always occur in the dynamics of people on earth because of us all having our unique conceptualization of how we look at things. There's going to always be varying degrees of how people do things. These varying degrees of how people ritualize their way of sustaining themselves will always be close, but always vaguely differ from each other. There's nothing wrong with that. There's only something wrong with it when someone can take these things and like colonize them and push them further apart from people who otherwise were clean to each other and make these people victims, become mindless people who has been brainwashed into the perpetuation of inflicting mistrust, envy, and violent, atrocious attacks on each other, and no type of unity, just straight up dissension and mistrust. This was a deliberate thing that was done. Marcus Garvey warned the people that were demonstrating these type of horrible systems of existence across the planet. He warned them. Okay, look for me. He let them know when I leave my body, I will be back. I will be back in the weather. Look for me in the whirlwind. He meant the tornadoes, the hurricanes, the snowstorms, the blizzards, the hail, the fires, the water tsunamis, everything. You name it. If it's going to be a pattern of weather, it's going to come at you in a spiral, which is the whirlwind. And it keeps getting bigger and bigger until eventually it's so big you can't see it, you just feel it. Okay, let's go like this.
Garvey's father was a mason, a professional mason, and among the things that he did was to create tombs for people in the St. Anne's Bay graveyard. He took Garvey with him to the graveyard one day, and they were digging this grave, and his father had Garvey go down inside the grave, but then he pulled the ladder up and left the child in the bottom of the grave. Garvey said that he cried out and his father wouldn't let him get back up out of the grave. He wanted to teach him a lesson.
Alone in the grave, young Marcus Garvey learned that he could rely on no one but himself. It was a lesson he would carry for the rest of his life.
I like that. I heard it a different way too when I was a child. My grandmother, along with John Henry Clark, used to always say, if you don't see what you see in the mirror as a friend, then you better believe you don't have a friend.
Marcus Garvey was born in August of 1887 in St. Anne's Bay, a small town on the northern coast of Jamaica. His father, who had been born a slave, withdrew from the family for days at a time and insisted his wife and 2 children address him at all times as Mr. Garvey.
My grandfather.
See, that's a good point to make, because just because other people on the planet might treat your father like he ain't shit, you know, this is a real big problem amongst us melanated people in this country. We have children who watch the rest of the world, including their mother, look down on black men as if we're not anything, because that's been programmed into our mind, especially black men. Black men are really quick to do that. Melanated men are quick to do that to each other too. Mistrust, stealing from each other, always trying to make each other woman. You know, the envy, the hatred, and the jealousy is quicker amongst us on ourselves than any place else you want to find it. You can't even talk about how nasty and ornery white people are, Mexicans are to us, because we more ornery and nasty and rude to each other than anyone else on the planet. There's no one on the planet who can take credit for doing ornery shit to black people more than black people can take that credit on themselves. If there was no Chinese people, no Mexicans, no whites on this planet, our dumb black asses will find a way for them to all show up again and put us right back into the same bullshit we've allowed ourselves to be in right now. Because guess what? They should have never been here anyway. And I don't say that to be rude, but I just say that because that's a proof of our own self-hatred that we wanted to eradicate ourselves. And we invented the people to do that shit for us. So just think about that. As your ass want to keep sagging around and keep hating somebody that you see trying to change the world and tell the world there's something other than worshiping the white man as God. All y'all asses sitting up in them churches right now hating me. That's who I want to think about that. I want you to think about how your dumb ass is hating everything I'm saying because you hate yourself. And you want to love something that don't look like your ugly ass.